Good afternoon, students. I hope everyone is doing well, staying safe, is sheltering in place, and being as healthy as possible. What I wanted to talk about today was the last large project for this class, which is what I call our culminating experience, which is the diet analysis part 5. So what I'd like to do is direct everybody's attention to take a look at the modules. And when we go into the modules, there's two different areas that I want to direct your attention towards. One is where we have the information about the diet analysis project, which I'm highlighting right here, information. And then the submission area is in a different week because it's not due. I want you guys to start thinking about it now, but it is actually due down here in week 16. So when you're actually finished with it, you're going to come here to submit. So first of all, I'd like to go over the information section. So what I want to talk about here is that I have all of the information laid out in text in this particular area here. So when you're looking at this, you will go through and get your directions here, but the other area in week 16 is actually where you're going to be submitting it. The due date for this is Friday, May 2nd at 11:59 p.m. Again, if there's any students that are having hardships and aren't able to make that deadline, then please reach out to me because I can be flexible in that due date, but I do want to get them graded, and it takes me a while because this is a large project. It's worth 50 points, and so it is time consuming to get them in before grades. Okay, what we are going to be doing, if any of you students have ever worked with Google Sites before, that's not Google Slides, this is Google Sites. It's like a portfolio site, so also if any of you are out there looking for jobs, this is a way in which you can actually create an e-portfolio, put it on a link on your resume or share it with anybody or recruiting coordinators or anything if you're trying to look for a job. So this is something that you probably will use again and again and again as you move forward with your college career. So if you're not familiar with it, there is some information about Google Sites right here. Students can usually access their Google Sites in a couple different ways. I have a link here to a template that you can use, but then you can also go into your own, when you're in your Google area here, you can actually go into Google Sites wherever you have your Google area set up on your computer. So any of those will work. For now, what I want to talk about is also a submission information that you will be submitting this information to me for a grade. It is worth 50 points. However, in addition to that, we're going to have you, if you were a student who has been admitted to the university between fall 2018, so looking back, when did you enter Fresno State? If it was fall 2018 or up to our current semester, then you will also be required to submit the GE portfolio in the Section E requirement area and track this inside of your own Canvas GE portfolio area. So in fact, if that does apply to you, you'll submit it to me for a grade, and then you'll also have to upload it and submit it in your own personal GE portfolio. At some point, the university goes through and looks at that information, and if you don't have that stuff there and you've taken that class, they won't let you register for more classes. So you need to remember to go in and submit it there right after you submit it for me. So I will show you a little bit of information on that again at the end as well. All right, so what do I want to have you do is I want you to create a portfolio for me that is really going to showcase everything that we've learned over this semester about the different areas. So if you remember when we started these chapters, we started looking at the macronutrients, carbohydrate, proteins, and fats. And so we want to look at these as categories, and I want you to look at them in regards to carbohydrate, protein, and fat. And then for the vitamins and minerals section, I had mentioned to many of you right before we split from class that the alternative assignment that I was giving you instead of the group work that we would have for vitamin and minerals, which would be this infographic that most of you have submitted, is actually going to help you in our diet analysis part 5. This is the area. So you're actually going to just be able to put your infographic right here in this area and not have to worry about all of this information. However, if you did not complete the infographic vitamin and mineral assignment, then you will need to do these areas here. So again, only if you don't have an infograph. If you have an infographic, you put that information into this category. If you don't, then you're going to have to create all of these subcategories and answer the questions that I'm asking you. Now, everybody will then also still do health risks, plan of action, and written summary. And what I've done here is just tell you the subcategories that I want created for all of this. But I have actually put also a template up for you. So now what I'm going to do is there's two examples here. One template is a blank template that just gives you the instructions. So we'll have this one up here. The other thing I'm going to open up is the example 2, which is actually more or less what your finished product might look like. So I'm going to toggle between the two so that you can see them. So what I'm looking at right here is just the template. So this is giving you the instructions. So when you look at this, what I'm asking you to do is it says here for calories and macros, you can completely use this or you can create your own. You don't have to use this template. I want you to get as creative as possible. If you want to play around in Google Sites and you want to get in here and start editing and making it look good, that is totally fine with me. But what I'm asking you for is that you need to have a heading that says calories and macros. And then within that, what I need you to do is follow these instructions. So in this particular case, it says in this category, students need to identify the recommended calorie intake, their carbohydrate, protein, and fats, keeping in mind the acceptable macronutrient distribution ranges. You remember those, right? So students can upload a snapshot of the report, or they can create a text box inside of this Google Sites for the information. And then after the student does that, it says next, the students must add comments and interpret the data report. If the student was above, below, and or within the normal range for the acceptable macronutrient distribution ranges and for calories, and then list any complications to the student's health if they are above or below. So if they're within normal range, they don't really need to list anything. But if you're above or below in a certain macronutrient, what does that mean? What have you learned? And that's where you're gonna go ahead and tell me what that is. So now if I go over to the sample assignment here, if this person, this is a student who actually did this, and left my template exactly how it was and didn't create anything new, except what they did was they imported their actual intakes versus recommendations for the calories. And so what this student was telling me was that for this particular student, this was their actual and this was their recommended. So if you can see there, they only met 84% of their calorie needs. So what does that mean? That means they didn't get enough calories. So the student now has to interpret that data to me and make a section, a text box that says that. So this student said, I did not meet my calorie needs. I was below the recommendation. No wonder why I feel tired all the time. I'm not getting enough calories. If I continue like this, I should be experiencing weight loss, because remember what we said, calories in equals calories out. And so if we're not getting enough, and this happens over time, then yes, this person should lose weight. So because I see this information, I know that this student has gotten the information out of our course to extrapolate that information and understand it and apply it to their own diet and looking forward what would happen. And that's exactly what this Section E General Ed requirement assignment is all about. Okay, now moving over to the acceptable macronutrient distribution range report. That is a different one. If you remember, that particular report is not here. These percentages that you see for carbohydrate is not an acceptable macronutrient distribution range. It just means out of this many calories, this is the percent that they got. So you need to go to the source of calories report, and that is where you can actually see that. So again, this student has taken a snapshot of that particular area. So then when we look here for carbohydrate, this particular student is getting 43% of the acceptable macronutrient distribution range for carbohydrate. What is the recommendation is listed right here, 45 to 65. So did they meet it? What do you think? Yes or no? So if you answered no, they did not meet it, that's correct, because they were below the recommended amount. For protein, at 16%, the recommendation is 10 to 35. Did they meet it? Yes, they did. And then for fat, It's 20 to 35%, and they were at 39. Did they meet it? Yes. So which one of these of the acceptable macronutrient distribution ranges does this student need to talk about? This one needs to talk about the carbohydrates. So in the response to the acceptable macronutrient distribution report, the student has entered this text box that says the acceptable macronutrient distribution range for carbohydrate is 45 to 65%. My records show that I was 43, below the recommendation. The function of carbohydrate is what? What did I teach you guys? It's to provide energy and fuel for my body. I'm not getting enough, so my body is using other macronutrients like protein and fat to fuel my body. This might be why I feel so tired. And that's exactly what she was saying over here, because she's not getting enough calories. So that is what I'm looking for you guys to do in this particular section. So these are examples. I have the template over here, and then over here I have how it should actually look. Okay, so you can use this as you go through everything. Now, like I mentioned before, I just want to point out again that when we look at the vitamins and minerals here, I put a big bolded thing here that says, if a student submitted the vitamin and mineral infographic assignment using Canva, please insert your assignment here. So you're going to have your whole assignment here, and you don't have to do any of this. Now, if you did not submit your infographic, then these are the things that I need you to work on doing, and looking at these particular vitamins right here and creating information about vitamin D, vitamin A, vitamin C, blah, blah, blah. So if you come over here in this particular example, oh, and these are two photos that are added about I'm going to lose weight and I'm not doing so good with my macronutrients. Now, moving here to the vitamins and minerals, this is a person who did not do the infographic assignment, because this is my example from the other semester where I didn't have students do that. So you can put your infographic right here. If not, this is what it needs to look like. So this is an example of what it would look like for someone who did not do the vitamin and mineral assignment. Okay, so everybody moving forward needs to come down to health risks. So after you've done those two areas, you've put your infographic, you've done the macronutrients, now I want you to look at your health risks. So in this category, students will need to explain what items in their diet might make them at a higher risk for chronic diseases. So looking back and evaluating, these are the 4 areas that I want you to look at: your sodium, your cholesterol, your body mass index, and your waist circumference. And you can take your waist circumference by using either a measuring tape, or if you don't have one, it says come by my office, but obviously this was before COVID. You can just take either the pants size that you wear, like your jean size, and use that waist, or you can take just like a string or even I'll joke and say toilet paper if you have it, since everybody's hoarding it. If you have some toilet paper, take it and just wrap it around right at your belly button, and then after you get it to the right length that you need, then take that off and then measure that with a measuring tape or something, and that'll tell you how many inches your waist is, because there's a number that says that you're more likely, if it's above this number, to have health problems. So, and you learn that in chapters. You actually probably learn that in the weight management chapter. So now what you're going to do is you're going to look at the sodium in your diet and the cholesterol. Where do you find those? And even the body mass index. That one is going to be in your report, and it's going to be in your intake versus recommendations. And so you'll be able to look at that. And so what I'm wanting you to do here is to have an image, okay? And the first one is sodium. So you can put any kind of image that you want. And then you're going to put your actual sodium intake and then whatever your recommended sodium intake was. So looking at this student, guess what? The recommendation is 2,300. They are actually at 4,000. So what does that mean? That means that they were above. And then I'm asking them to rank their score on a scale of 1 to 10. What do they rate that as? So that's what this information is asking you here. So 10 would be I'm at a very high risk for developing whatever that said disease is. So what disease do you think of when you think of sodium? Most people think of blood pressure. We've talked about that because the #1 killers among Americans is heart disease. And heart disease, one of the things that goes hand in hand with heart disease is your blood pressure. So when we look at this one, right? So this person's saying, well, I'm have a lot more than I should, but I'm putting my number to 5. And then I want you to explain why you put your number. So this student said, I could develop hypertension later in life if I continue this. The fast food in my diet is what was causing the most sodium. So this person went back and looked at their diet and found out, where did all that sodium come from? And so it was the fast food. So could this person improve if they wanted to? Yeah, what does that mean? Cut out a little bit more fast food, eat more fruits and vegetables, you'll have less sodium in your diet. Okay, you're going to do the same for cholesterol, body mass index, and for the waist circumference. I didn't put those here because I'm not going to give everybody the answers, but this is just an example that a student put together. Okay, the other parts that we're looking for is a plan of action, because remember, this Section E general ed requirement, lifelong learning, is that can you take this information and can you apply it to your diet and actually make some changes? And so this is looking at, what do you need to do? So when we look at the plan of action, that means you want to start planning for something, right? So you have to have a goal. So you're going to need to have a goal. And then what I'm asking you to do is to come up with 3 changes I can make in the next 3 months. So what can you change in the next 3 months about your diet and your health that you can work on, that your diet analysis project has taught you about? I want you to upload at least 1 digital photo of each change that you're willing to make in the next 3 months. And what I want you to do is look up something called SMART goals. You can just Google and you put the parentheses in and put SMART goals, and it stands for what? Any of you know? It stands for specific, measurable, achievable, reasonable, and having time framed. So if your goal is going to have all of these in there, that's what I'm looking for. So there needs to be very specific. Most people say, oh, I need to eat more fruits and vegetables. Well, yes, but how? That's not very specific. It's not measurable. It's not achievable if you don't have those things in there. So what do you have to have? You have to have something that's a little bit more practical. You actually have to give it a little bit more information. So for example, for the student that wants to do this, they need to come up with something that says, so if you want to increase more fruits and vegetables, you want to increase by how many? Like, where were you at now? Go look at your fruits and vegetable intake on your My Plate report. And if you were at 1 a day, maybe you want to try to get to 2 a day. So you could say that your goal is to increase to 2 a day. And how you're going to do that is by adding a fruit at breakfast and then making sure that at dinner and lunch that you also have a fruit. And you want to do that how many days per week? So there's 7 days in a week. How can you do it every day? Probably not, because that's a big goal. So at 2 of the 7 days, I will have 2 fruits and vegetables more than I did before. Something like that. That's what that part is. Okay, now, and here's some examples of that. Now, here's the summary. So the summary is this last part. I don't want you to put any photos. And by the way, the photos that you import, I don't care if they don't have to be your photos from your personal photos that I've been asking you to take with your food. You can use sources from the internet, like this particular picture here. This came from the internet, but I want you to cite it. So you need to actually cite your source in the photo, like what website you took it from, so that we're not plagiarizing. Okay, now, when you get to the summary, this is important because this is where I want you to actually write information out. And so what it says for you to do is students need to provide a written detailed summary of your diet and personal health and map out a nutrition plan that includes specific details of realistic dietary changes that will reduce risk of nutrition-related disease factors that you have identified in your very own diet. So what does that mean? It means everything that I've been prepping you for. It means that you're going to be bringing in your plans of action and some of this information up here from your report. And now you're actually going to tell me about it. You're going to tell me what you've learned about your diet and how it relates to disease. And then how can you change those? Once you know that there's a problem, you need to have a plan to fix it. And so this has to be achievable and measurable and over the lifetime. So it doesn't have to be, everything that you identified. I'm just looking for some major things that you can kind of map it out. So an example here would be what the information is saying here is eating healthy starts with learning new ways to eat, such as adding more fruits and vegetables and whole grains and cutting back on foods that have a lot of fat, salt, and sugar. A change for healthier eating also includes learning about balance, variety, and moderation. Have I been talking about all that stuff? Yes. So now students should provide their details about their evaluations. Students should touch upon the above categories and formulate their personal nutrition status and areas for improvement and include a map plan, like a map plan, to improve their health status and tie that to their individual health status as they get older. So guess what? You can use these goals that you had here and you can write about them again in here. That's what we want you to do. This is your summary. This is how you're summing it up and talking about, well, I don't get enough. My vitamins and minerals were not good. And if I increase my fruits and vegetables, I will stay healthier because why? If I eat more of these, what vitamins does it have? It has vitamin C, and vitamin C will help with my immunity. And during COVID, is that important to keep my immune system strong? So that's how you bring it in and you look at it and are able to tell me in a way written that you understand the content of what we've discussed in our class. Okay, so now once you have all of that, oh, I want to hit on one other thing. When you are doing this, when you create your own, what you haven't seen yet is I'm going into the edit side of it. So when I'm talking about creating a text box or bringing in images, these are the layouts. There's different types of layouts you can do. You can add a table of contents. You can have an image where it would show and have a carousel of different photos. You guys can get absolutely creative with this. You can bring in some forms. You can bring in a document. You can bring in whatever you want to make it and set it up the way that you want. And then when you're ready, that's when you're going to finish it off and you're going to publish it. And once it's published, you will actually get a link that's what you're going to be uploading for me. Okay. So now if I come back over here, I'm going to get out of those. And now I'm back in Canvas, right? And all of this information is the same as what we've just been going over inside these two examples. Now, what we want to do is go to our submission area. And so remember, our submission area, I think, is in week 16. So when we go down here to week 16, now here's your submission area. And this is where you're actually going to submit it. Now, this is the information I have, and I'm just reminding you again, if you were a student that was admitted to the university from fall 2018 to the current semester, then you will also need to submit this in your own GE portfolio that will be found inside of your own Canvas. When you go to your own dashboard, it will actually have a GE portfolio area, and this particular GE requirement is section E. So I've said that many, many times. Section E, right up here in your general ed, is where you're going to submit this. So you're going to submit this for me. And then you're also going to log out of here after you've submitted it here in this area. And then you're going to go into your dashboard area and you're going to find it. Now, I'm not a student, so of course I don't have one of those, but it would be around here somewhere, and you go into that particular, it'll say something like GE, and then you go in there and then you find section E and you upload it. And you don't want to forget to do that, because at some point, if you haven't, then the university's not going to let you register for classes, because they're tracking you that way, that you have to submit these things after you've had these classes. Okay, so I hope that I have explained this. And the last thing, if you don't know about GE information, first of all, you can reach out a little bit more to me. I might be able to help you. But secondly, I have put a link to Fresno State's GE right here. When I go back into this one, this is the link that it directs students to what is the GE program portfolio. And it actually has, see, it's got some information here about it. And then it actually has, like, whatever year that you were admitted to the university, it's got a handout for you that you could take a look at. And it's going to show you how you actually go ahead and upload all of that information. But it's very self-explanatory. Okay, so I think that that's all I have for you right now. I am having normal office hours. My office hours are on Mondays, And on Thursdays, Mondays it's from 2 to 3, and then Thursdays from noon to 2:30. If you need to get in touch with me, that's probably the best time where you can log on and we can have a discussion. Otherwise, I'm intently going to be working on grading from here on out. And after you do this, I do want you to continue with the work that we have, which is the pregnancy chapter, and then also the last and final chapter where you actually have mastering assignments is actually alcohol, chapter 7. And then once you finish that, the final is not comprehensive. And you can actually take the final anytime. However, it will be open during final schedule so that we're in accordance and in compliance with the university's guideline. And it needs to be taken by the day. Our day to take the final, I believe, is on a Monday, and it needs to be taken by 11:59 on that Monday. And I've stated that inside of the information as well. So if you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Best time again is office hours. Try to minimize my emails because I've been getting a lot of emails. Okay. Again, I hope you guys are having a great day, and I look forward to seeing all the great work that you guys create. Thank you. Bye-bye.